our strike tracker has shown that since March of 2020, the beginning of the pandemic, there's been more than 1,700 strikes that we've counted. Now, this is, I think, in my opinion, a pretty severe underestimation, since there's many, we're relying heavily on Google alerts and news links and people sending in tips to us. So there's probably a lot going on that we don't know about. We know there have been at least 1,700 work stoppages, retail worker walkouts. And this is part of a bigger trend we're seeing nationwide. Since this year alone, 25% of all Americans have quit their jobs and changed jobs. Workers after the pandemic don't want to be treated the way that they used to be treated anymore. Things have changed. People build up their savings. They weren't going out to eat during the pandemic. People realized they were saving money on childcare. And the unemployment benefits, having a good social welfare state for a while at a certain point during the pandemic, helped certainly a lot. But historically speaking, Dan at the American Prospect has a great piece everyone should read called The Great Escape. Historically speaking, after each pandemic in global history, workers' wages have always gone up because so many people during every pandemic keep things going. And then afterwards, they help save someone's business and they risk their lives. And they say, I want a little bit better than that. You were telling me I was a hero for coming into work and, I want to be treated better. So just today, we saw there's a nationwide pharmacist walkout. Pharmacists have been on the front lines of the pandemic the entire time, not just on the front lines, but being forced to do double work, now giving out so many vaccines, so many COVID tests, and having to fill higher script volumes because of the complications of COVID. You have people coming getting a lot of medicine. But because of the monopolization, we no longer have the small independent pharmacies where a pharmacist could go to graduate school for 6 or 8 years and hope to someday become a partner in the pharmacy. Now you have huge chains like CVS that owns Aetna, that owns Caremark. You have these huge chains. And at CVS, the starting salary for a pharmacist is $45,000 after graduating $200K in debt. And so people that are on the front lines, like pharmacists, hospital workers, even we just got back from covering an iron workers strike. These workers have been declared essential workers. They changed things. My friend Boots Riley, the filmmaker, once said to me that the worst mistake the ruling class ever made was coming up with the term essential worker, because it made people realize how valuable they are. And now people are asking for more. And I don't see that ending anytime soon. I think 2022, we're going to see even more strikes. And it's interesting to see these strikes at a time when Build Back Better and other legislation is having difficulty overcoming obstacles like Joe Manchin. Workers are going out and they're demanding more on their own outside of the political process. We're seeing this over and over again, that just not are workers demanding more from their employers, they're demanding more from their unions. And we've also seen a huge spike in retail worker walkouts that are driven by online viral culture, where workers will make fun videos, particularly Black TikTok, Black teenagers, of everybody just rolling out of the establishment, and these go viral. And so, these are places that unions aren't even getting involved. Greg Jaffe at the Washington Post, we collaborated with them on a front page cover story about a group of workers at the Bradford, PA McDonald's who all walked out and they all found better jobs shortly. And so, we're at a point where we're asking ourselves some questions, and we really need media because, as you can see, half of the walkouts we track, more than half, don't even involve a union. And, sometimes, and I know this has been controversial, but I do think there's some organizing out of it. And I know there's been these workers walking out over vaccine mandates, right? And I tend to look at these workers as the unorganized. I was meeting with some pretty sharp union organizers in East LA. They were Chicano that was saying, well, if these workers are concerned about the vaccine mandate, then, unions should be stepping in and saying, hey, well, make sure that you give everyone health care. That way, if anybody gets sick taking the vaccine. I think there's a lot of space that we're not exploring right now that we've struggled even to understand. Cornell has their own labor action tracker, and they refuse to count retail worker walkouts. Meanwhile, you had something like 4 million workers quit their job in October. So I think the notion of what is the traditional labor movement is being spun on its head. And this happens after every mass loss of American life. After the Civil War, that was the foundings of the 8-hour workday movement. After, 1946, you had all these major, huge strikes right after World War II. And so now I think we're coming into a period of increased activity. The question, I think, is whether the left is really prepared to organize.